Hey all, welcome to our second session. This session is going to be dedicated to the topic of blended learning. Throughout the session, we'll talk about things like what blended learning is, why it's a useful strategy for teachers and for students, how to implement the strategy into your classroom, and just some tips and tools to be able to take blended learning, the approach, and maybe utilize it in your classroom. Some of the requirements for this session are going to be to watch this short video. There will be some resources posted on Schoology. You'll have some time dedicated to making your own blended learning lessons, and then finally you'll have to answer a couple of questions to go along and get credit for your hours for this session. Without any further ado, let's hop right into it. We'll go ahead and jump right in here to the idea of blended learning and how it can be helpful for students and teachers in a classroom setting. The big idea with blended learning is the ability to combine that face-to-face, the normal teaching interaction that goes on in an everyday classroom, with adding in some online components to a lesson. For those of you that are familiar with the idea of flipped learning, or having your lessons completely online and spending more time with student interaction, this is a little bit of a step down from that. There are some components that are going to be similar and be able to be applicable to the idea of blended learning. The resources for blended learning are really going to come down to the comfort level and just the overall direction that a teacher wants to take this idea and this concept and use it in their own classroom. A lot of people will use online video resources like YouTube, Khan Academy. We'll look at a couple of different places where you can find resources to be able to use. People do a lot of screencasting, which we're going to talk about more in this video and will be available as a completely different session. And online places like blogs and websites and other places where you can gather information that might be relevant to a topic that your students are learning about. One of the biggest things with blended learning is I just want people to understand that it's not this new approach to teaching. It's not something completely different. It's taking resources from online, whether it's videos that you find or making a screencast or someplace on the web that has useful information, and just being able to add them in to help students better understand content and material. The nice part about this approach is so much of it can be easily implemented right away, using things that a lot of teachers already use, things like QR codes and being able to post stuff on Schoology. It can be as simple as taking, a video from YouTube or from Khan Academy and just posting it to Schoology and having kids watch that video. The devices that the students have an unbelievable access to unlimited resources. There's so much information students can be able to find that just wouldn't be able to be delivered in a normal lesson, and all we need to do is be able to point those students in the right direction, and that's what blended learning aims to do. We're going to quick dive into probably the most important part here, the why the idea of blended learning is such a valuable tool for students and especially for teachers. Now, I can't speak for all teachers, but I know some sort of variation of this scenario has taken place for everybody. We've got our all-important lesson. We're going through, kids are engaged, we've got all our interactive stuff, and we're teaching them, and we're adding our fractions, and all of a sudden we get to the end, and what happens? 5 kids have a blank stare. 3 kids magically ended up in the bathroom. 6 kids already know what they're doing and are ready to move on, and nobody knows the directions for what they were supposed to do next. Now that you're probably ready to bang your head against the wall a few times, I'm here to tell you the idea of blended learning can help. Now we're going to talk a little bit about that last scenario that hopefully not too many people run into, but where blended learning could really be a help to teachers and students. Now I'm going to take you through some what-if statements that really will hopefully make us think about how we interact with students and how we can do whatever is necessary to help them. If you had a video demonstrating how to add fractions with like denominators, think about all the students that could help. The students that maybe missed class that day or were gone for interventions or for some other reason, or maybe a student who just needs to see you do it just a couple of more times to be able to really understand a concept. They could watch a short video that you made, they would be able to understand the concept, and you could spend your time helping other students. Now think about your students that are always seem to be done and are always ready for something more. What if you found a video on YouTube or Khan Academy that maybe just takes them through the next steps? Thinking back to the fractions example, what about if they had to add fractions with unlike denominators and they watched a really good YouTube video and were able to start to understand that concept, all without needing your guidance and your direction and being able to just take things and do things on their own? What if you had posted a link to a site that walked students through the process and gave them a really good visual understanding of how and why we add fractions, and they could go home and they could practice, or they could work on more problems? Or kind of the last idea there, what if they had a place for them to be able to write about their experiences and seek out help maybe from classmates to get a better understanding of what they're looking at? You know, I think of subjects like science that are so much more interactive and require just that deeper understanding of specific concepts, and how other students can be such a great asset in that area. One of the last sections we're going to jump into here is just some tools and resources to help kind of implement this idea of blended learning and how maybe we can do different things in our classroom. The first tool that we're going to look at is screencasting. Screencasting is basically showing or demonstrating what's on your screen while recording your voice over the top, similar to what we're doing right here. Now there's going to be a separate session on how to make specific screencasts, and I strongly encourage you to be able to go through that session and see kind of some of the specifics on using the different apps and programs that I have laid out for you. Again, screencasting is just going to be a great way to be able to use your voice and different tools like video and audio, and being able to demonstrate things on the screen for students to be able to see what you're doing. There are tons and tons of specific screencasting tools out there. I'm going to go through some for your computer, some maybe for your iPad, and it'll just be up to you to kind of play around with them and see which ones you like the most. I just pulled up a bunch of different resources and apps that I've used to make different types of screencasts. Again, Explain Everything is the kind of go-to app I use for screencasting. It has a lot of functions and a lot of different options and tools that you can bring in. Educreations is a little bit more straightforward. It's just kind of a whiteboard with the ability just to record your voice and save it in different options. Viddle is a fairly new app that I've just started to explore. It has a lot of the same functionality as Explain Everything. On your desktop, there's a couple of Google Chrome extensions that make really easy screencasts. Screencast-O-Matic, the ability to add your voice to record on your desktop there. And Screencastify is another one that has really worked out nicely. Kind of a couple quick notes with the desktop version. They will require a microphone to be able to record what's going on. And also, if you're gonna import your video or yourself in there at all, you'll need some sort of webcam or something that will be able to have those capabilities. If screencasting is a little bit above your level, or you run into the same problem that seems like every teacher has, you just don't have the time, there's a lot of great stuff that's already been made for you. You just need to be able to look for it and use it. The two biggest resources in blended learning are YouTube and Khan Academy. They're the ones that everybody knows. There's so many great videos out there that students can be able to watch and can learn from. But those aren't the only places where great content exists. Places like BrainPop, PBS Video, they have a whole bunch of resources specifically designed to be able to help with the concept of blended learning and to help engage students. The last kind of session here that we're going to talk about is just how do we take the things that we've talked about today and implement them into our own classroom. I've got some different ideas and different strategies to kind of help get the idea of blended learning going in your own classroom, but it's really going to come down to the teacher and just the comfort level that the teacher has, maybe the age range of the students and kind of the ability level that they have, and just the overall time commitment that a teacher wants to take to implement the strategies that we talked about here today. So one by one, I'll just kind of touch on a couple of the different ways that we could implement this idea into our own classroom. The first one being the leveled approach. With standards-based grading and the idea of 1, 2, and 3, one way to implement blended learning would be to have different maybe videos or different projects or different lessons or different things that the students would have to go to based on if they are a 1, a 2, or a 3. Maybe a 1, they have to go back and kind of rewatch a concept and just get a better understanding of what's going on. 2, maybe it has a video where they have to practice more to try and improve their skills, and they walk through step by step. And maybe a 3 takes them to something that's a little bit harder, or something that challenges them, is maybe one idea for blended learning. The second one would be stations, especially in the primary ages as kids are going and interacting with different stuff. Maybe having a QR code out there where they scan it and they watch a video and they do something interactive is one way for the teacher to have to be less involved. A student can watch a video, they can learn a concept, and they can just be able to do whatever they need to do. The third one I think is going to apply to everybody here, the missed lesson. You know, kids are gone all the time, whether they're sick or they're pulled for one reason or another. It seems like kids are missing stuff all the time. Well, rather than having to work maybe one-on-one with a student, maybe you could record a video or a screencast and have them watch that screencast and just be able to, you know, catch up on that lesson on their own time. I think that's one of the best things about blended learning is it really puts some ownership on the kids. They can watch it at their own speed, they can watch it at their own time, they can rewind, they can skip ahead as they see fit. And the last one, there's just the student that needs extra assistance. Maybe a kid needs to watch something multiple times to be able to catch up on a concept. In a normal classroom setting, maybe the teacher doesn't have time to be able to do a whole bunch of extra practice problems. And rather than taking the time to meet with that student who might just need to do a bunch of practice, blended learning might be able to just help them be able to take some of that extra practice and do it on their own. Like I said, these are just some very basic principles for blended learning on how you can get them involved in your own classes. And it's something that hopefully everybody can start to come up with ideas on how it best fits in their own room. And that's it for this session. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you through the necessary requirements for you to be able to get your 1 hour of professional development pay and 1 hour of continuing ed credits. So you've already watched the video at this point. The next thing I need you to do is to view the resources on Schoology. Just a couple of different posts about blended learning and just the idea and how to implement them into your classroom, different strategies and things like that for blended learning. Now, item number 3 here is going to take a little bit of work from you. You either need to find a video or you need to make a screencast from a specific lesson that you teach. So think about something that you teach in your classes that would be easy to add some sort of blended learning component. All you need to do is you need to find a video or you need to make a screencast and copy that link, because step number 4 is going to answer some questions. There's going to be a Google form posted in Schoology, and all you need to do is post the video that you found or the screencast that you made and answer the couple of questions that go with it. Once you've completed those 4 steps, you'll be signed off on 1 hour of continuing ed credit, and you are good to go. Enjoy. I hope you'll join us for a couple of more sessions.